Welcome back to our hike up Mount Carmel, where we're answering Elijah's invitation to witness a showdown between himself, the single prophet of Yahweh, the God of the Bible, and the prophets of Baal, the national god of Queen Jezebel from Sidon, whom the people of Israel have come to embrace in their own worship. Let's pick up our story in 1 Kings chapter 18 at verse 19. Now summon the people, Elijah says, from all over Israel to meet me on Mount Carmel, and bring the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Jezebel's table. Now that phrase, to eat at Jezebel's table, just means that they're nationally sponsored and supported by the king's household. So Ahab sent word throughout all Israel and assembled the prophets on Mount Carmel. Elijah went before the people and said, "How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him." Now remember our lesson from last time. Lord in all caps is the personal name of the God of Israel. So it actually reads, if Yahweh is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him. But the people said nothing. I wonder what this indicates about the people. Are there those who continue to worship Yahweh, but fear they'll be killed if they speak out? I suspect this is true. And are there those who don't much care one way or the other, and they're going to turn their allegiance to whoever wins this contest? I suspect that that's true as well. You know what surprises me are those people who are Baal worshipers. Where is their vocal support? They certainly don't have anything to fear from the royal authorities. Perhaps their silence indicates that they are well aware of Yahweh's command to worship him alone, and they sense that the time of reckoning is near. Then Elijah said to them, "I am the only one of the Lord's prophets left, but Baal has 450 prophets. Get 2 bulls for us. Let Baal's prophets choose one for themselves, and let them cut it into pieces and put it on the wood, but not set fire to it. And I will prepare the other bull and put it on the wood, but not set fire to it. And then you call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord. And the God who answers by fire, he is God." Then all the people said, "What you say is good." So the people agreed to a demonstration through burnt offering, where instead of the prophets setting the sacrifice ablaze, the God who is real is going to light the fire. So they took the bull given them and prepared it. Then they called on the name of Baal from morning till noon. "Baal, answer us," they shouted. But there was no response. No one answered. And they danced around the altar they had made. And at noon, Elijah began to taunt them. "Shout louder," he said. "Surely he is a god. Perhaps he is deep in thought, or busy, or traveling. Maybe he is sleeping and must be awakened." So they shouted louder, and they slashed themselves with swords and spears, as was their custom, until their blood flowed. Midday passed, and they continued their frantic prophesying until the time for the evening sacrifice. But there was no response. No one answered. No one paid attention. These details are repetitive, specific, and intentional. The story slows down in these to convey that their efforts went on for hours, escalating in their intensity to prompt Baal, the god whom they worshipped, but who did not actually exist, to some kind of action. And then Elijah said to all the people, "Come here to me." And they came to him, and he repaired the altar of the Lord, which had been torn down. Notice how remnants of Yahweh worship still remain. They were just dismantled and discarded. And Elijah took 12 stones, one for each of the tribes descended from Jacob, to whom the word of the Lord had come, saying, "Your name shall be Israel." As Elijah chooses his 12 stones, he's purposely reenacting Exodus 24, where Moses chose 12 stones to memorialize the day when Israel and Yahweh sealed the covenant between them. He's recalling Joshua's instruction for 12 stones to be chosen and erected as Israel first enters the promised land. He's reminding the people of the breastplate that was worn by the priests of Yahweh, in which 12 precious stones represented their own ancestors, those 12 tribes who were in covenant to worship Yahweh alone. These earlier foundational moments are milestones in which the Lord established the 12 tribes of Israel into a singular nation, unified by the fact that Yahweh and only Yahweh was their God. So Elijah, he's doing a lot more than just repairing an altar here. But with these stones, he rebuilt an altar in the name of the Lord, in the name of Yahweh. And he dug a trench around it large enough to hold 2 seahs of seed. And he arranged the wood, cut the bull into pieces, and he laid it on the wood. And then he said to them, "Fill 4 large jars with water and pour it on the offering and on the wood." "Do it again," he said, and they did it again. "Do it a 3rd time," he ordered, and they did it a 3rd time. And the water ran down around the altar and even filled the trench. So since Yahweh is challenged to answer by fire, the repeated drenching of the wood of this sacrifice increases the challenge. And at the time of sacrifice, the prophet Elijah stepped forward and he prayed, "Lord, Yahweh, the God of Abraham and Isaac and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant, have done all these things at your command." Note what Elijah is doing here. He's reminding the people who gave no answer to his earlier question of who was their God, that Yahweh, the God of their common ancestors, is Lord, and that he and he alone is God in Israel, no matter whom the king and queen support. "Answer me, Lord, answer me, so these people will know that you, Yahweh, Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back again." He prays simply, without demonstration and chanting and dancing and cutting, for God to simply answer his plea. And the reason is not for Elijah to save face, but for the people to know that Yahweh, the Lord, all caps, is God. And then the fire of the Lord fell and burned up the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and the soil, and it also licked up the water in the trench. And when all the people saw this, they fell prostrate and cried, "The Lord, he is God. The Lord, he is God." Just imagine the contest taking place on that flat ground below where we are sitting. You get a front row seat to the entire spectacle where Elijah taunts Baal's prophets all day long while they cry out desperately for their God to hear. And then Elijah strolls to his spot, rebuilds the desecrated stone altar, drenches the wood, sacrifices the bull, and in a flash, you witness a fiery display so awe-inspiring that the people fall to the ground at the sight of it. A banner day indeed for those who follow Yahweh, the God of Israel. I often marvel at Elijah's just his raw confidence that God would display himself so powerfully before the nation atop Mount Carmel. You know, if that was me, I'd be thinking, this had better work. It's just that in my experience, God seems to prefer to show himself in much more subtle ways. I think it's because if you keep on reading in 1 Kings, God's consuming everything down to the dust that day, it really doesn't change all that much. Jezebel, she's not impressed, and she chases Elijah into the wilderness to kill him. And most of those people that are shouting, "The Lord, he is God," on that evening, they fall away again before too long. So I'm not convinced that these epic displays are as effective as we'd like to think that they are. And I wonder instead if God is urging us to see him not in the fiery exhibition on the mountain, but look farther down into the valley below, where everyday life is happening. How well do we see God's faithfulness in the mundane? Where do you see God at work in your everyday? Because he is there. in provision, in healing, in comfort, in setting before us constant challenges to grow. It's really easy, I think, to make bold proclamations in the midst of the mountaintop experiences. The challenge of Mount Carmel, as I see it, is to continue to proclaim that the Lord Yahweh is God once we return to the valley below. Come along next time for more lessons in the land of honey. So thanks for coming along on this short journey into the Bible text. I hope you've noticed something new in the landscape, or maybe even a fresh way to view territory that you've covered many times before. Whatever the case, it's good to have you along for the trip. You never know what we might discover as we crack open this fascinating text together.